Okay, now what I've got to say today is I've got a terrible headache and I've had constant liquid bowels since last Thursday. Today is the 24th of December 2008. Basically, biowarfare terrorism campaign continues. What I would like to say is something about Alexander Letvinyenko. Now, the scenario involved behind the murder of Alexander Letvinyenko is that during the summer of 2006, there was a phase of poisoning me using radioactive weapons. Two methods. One in food and the second one in tobacco. I used to smoke. George Bush made a Freudian slip on the television at the time. He referred to the Iranians as uraniums. Now, the effect of it, you go bright red, and you can feel alpha decay in your skin. But like with any poison, you do tend to urinate it out, at least the majority of it. So I contacted the Russian embassy and explained to them that it was one of their latest ways of attacking me. Because it's very funny, of course, if you're in the royal household. So when the Russians had the intelligence about the harassment of me using radioactive poisons, Prince Charles, was known to be behind that. He decided that it sounded like the sort of thing the Russians would do, and so they had to single out Alexander Letvinyenko, and they poisoned him with polonium-210, not uranium. It's different symptoms. Uranium, you do go red, and it can cause diarrhea if you've got a high dose, but not like with biowarfare terror weapons. There's no flatulence. Your bowels just liquefy because the radiation kills all the microbials in your gut. And with Litvinenko, the story was that they were looking for evidence leading back to Russia. Andrei Lugovoy escaped Britain with his life to Dublin, and he was in hospital there for a short while with polonium poisoning too. Now, why did Andrei Lugovoy survive and Litvinenko die if Litvinenko wasn't finished off with more polonium-210 in the hospital? Yeah, now hospitals do murder people. My grandmother was murdered in Glangwili Hospital. They poisoned her off so that Prince Charles could steal an Amelia Earhart map that she'd left me in her will. He doesn't like me having inheritance. Yeah. Now, whether he stole it and kept it himself or stole it and gave it to a relative remains to be established. But Litvinenko would probably have survived the initial dose of polonium-210 if left alone, because after a few days it would have come out in his urine. That didn't happen, so I strongly suspect, with expert opinion, that he was poisoned in the hospital as well. Now, they started trying to do a story that the Russians had poisoned a dissident. So they wanted to blame it on the Russians. Oh, and they found a trail, that polonium-210 traces were found on a plane that had come from Moscow, so they followed the trail to Moscow, and that trail led to the British Embassy in Moscow. And that was broadcast on Sky News, that traces of polonium-210 had been found in the British Embassy in Moscow, and that ruined the story. Okay, the evidence didn't back the narrative they were trying to spin. So, what did they do then? They had an Ipswich serial killer. Yeah, and everyone had to forget about the story then, because it had been done. poison spy story over. New story, Ipswich serial killer. Find the fat man in the BMW. You know, that was on the front page of the Sun. Well, they never did they? Because I believe the fat man in the BMW, my suspect, is Chief Inspector Kieran Crosgrove from Dyfed-Powys Police. Agent Y, the one that bribed Henry Paul and set up the murder of Diana Spencer in Paris. I think he is the Ipswich serial killer. Yeah, and because of the involvement of the state, they could easily follow the man they were setting up. You know, they got cameras, they know where he's gone. They can murder his prostitutes, dump them, you know, in incriminating places. It's quite easy to do. So that's the scenario behind the Alexander Letvinyenko poisoning. I was being poisoned with radioactive poisons. Prince Charles, when confronted with his own actions, yeah, knowing that the Russians knew what he was doing, decided then that he would put the wrong back onto Russia by publicly poisoning a Russian dissident and blaming it on the Russians. Okay? But when it was proven that that's what he'd done, because the British embassy in Moscow having traces of polonium-210, so that's where the false trail to Russia had come from, so it couldn't have been Andrew Lugafoy. Then they had to change the story because the story was imploding on them, so we had to have an Ipswich serial killer. Okay, so for those of you that follow media, you know, it's good to have a good memory for event scenarios. Okay, and this is the news behind the news. Okay, just one excerpt.